Good afternoon, everyone. Can we please all stand for the national anthem? Thank you. Please be seated. Good afternoon and welcome to our, Good afternoon and welcome to a hybrid rally hosted by the Trinidad and Tobago Scrap Iron Dealers Association in collaboration with the Movement for Social Justice, the Joint Trade Union Movement, and other associations. My name is Willetta Wilson, your Mistress of Ceremonies. I'm the Secretary of Trinidad and Tobago Scrap Iron Dealers Association. At this time, I would like to introduce the Project Manager of TTCEDA, Mr. Anthony Rampasad, to deliver opening remarks. Anthony.
Thank you, Mrs. Chairman, Willetta Wilson, members of the head table, members of the audience, those listening on various radio stations, viewing on YouTube and television. Good afternoon and welcome to our Drive for Progress
Recording in progress.
Hybrid Rally. The rally is being hosted by the Trinidad and Tobago Scrap Iron Dealers Association, effectively known and in a friendly way as TTCEDA. So you can call us TTCEDA. In collaboration as well with the Movement for Social Justice, the Joint Trade Union Movement, and other associations. After two attempts to host our car rallies were rejected, we have decided that we will not be silenced. No way. Our unions and associations are concerned with the plight of citizens in this country. And we are also feeling the direct effects. Many citizens have been facing difficult times. And the COVID-19 pandemic have made the situation worse. It has amplified all sorts of things that are hidden in the nooks and crannies and the blatant openness of what is happening in the country. Many others have found themselves in position where they would have never thought they would have been in today. Unemployment rose. Food prices continue to increase exponentially. Murders are spiraling and seemingly out of control. Yes, brothers, more women and children are falling victims to domestic abuse and violence, and the list goes on and on. When will it end? Today, our task is to take a stance against the ills And that is inverted commas, the ills, all sorts of things, corruption, nepotism, and so on and so on. Right? The ills in society. To those in charge, we want to let them know. To those in charge, we want to let you know that we are keeping a close eye and we want them to act in the best interest of all citizens in this country. We also want to let our fellow men and women know that we have taken note of their outcries. Yes, we are hearing you and are standing in love and support towards you all. The entire country, over the next 2 hours, you will hear from a team of learned speakers, experienced men who are passionate about ensuring that the lives of our citizens are improved in this country. Yes, right here in TNT. Our dynamic team of speakers will remind you, yes they will, you that someone out there cares. Yes, we are listening. That someone is willing to stand up for you and that your life, your future is indeed important to us as a movement. Our movement, Drive for Progress. With these few words, I warmly welcome you to our Drive for Progress hybrid rally. Those who are here and those who appear virtually on social media. I hope you will stay with us till the end. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rampersad. It's time now to bring our first speaker. She is the president of the Joint Trade Union Movement Women, Ms. Sati Gajida Ennis.
All protocols observed. A pleasant good afternoon to all gathered here this afternoon on the virtual platform and those who are listening in. One correction. The interim chair of the Women's Committee, president of the JTUM, is also here, Comrade Ansel Roger. JTUM Women, at our Symposium of Working Women, in April of this year, discussed ways of strengthening our base of women in this movement in order to prepare ourselves to deepen our commitment and involvement in defending the rights of women in the workplace, anywhere where there is need to. A resolution to campaign for the ratification of Convention 190, Violence and Harassment in the World of Work, was passed at the symposium. And I just want to give some background on what is C190, because a lot of people, if I ask here this afternoon, if anybody know what is C190, I guess they might not know. So it's important for me to give a little background on that. Over 2 years ago, the International Labour Conference voted overwhelmingly to adopt Convention 190, and on June the 25th of this year, it entered into force, creating an opportunity for member states to design a future of work based on dignity and respect for all. The convention is solely based on all the principles of decent work. Anything you could think about as it pertains to work or the human being, it even delves into domestic violence. And I just want to go on and give a brief definition, and it is one of many definitions that we can find out there. A brief definition of violence and harassment is a range of behaviors and practices or even threats that can happen one or many times with the aim to or resulting in physical, psychological, sexual, or economic harm to the human being. Violence and harassment in the workplace can happen anywhere, online, in the physical workplace, during the commute, to and from work, where workers rest and even eat. We may ask why C-190, which the convention is deemed as C-190, is so important. Everyone has a right to a world of work free from violence and harassment. C-190 addresses domestic violence. There is special emphasis on gender-based violence because it affects women disproportionately. 1 in every 3 women will experience gender-based violence at one time or another. Countries who have already ratified the convention are Mauritius, Argentina, Ecuador, Fiji, Namibia, and Somalia. Uruguay, who was the very first to do so some 2 years ago. I just want to read something from Vera Gassavi, who is the ILO Caribbean Specialist Workers and Workers' Activities. The theme of the document was, "The time has come to rectify C-190." And I will just read why rectify now. The risk of violence and harassment is even higher during times of crisis such as COVID-19 the outbreak which we are facing now. In the context of the pandemic, it is particularly important that C-190 applies to all workers wherever the workplace is, including public-private spaces that become a workplace for more workers than ever. Before COVID-19 crisis, it was estimated that 1 in 3 women globally experienced physical or sexual abuse in their lifetime. Since the pandemic, violence against women and girls has grown, and yes, comrades, it has grown even in Trinidad, because we have known of a lot of violence that has taken place at home during the lockdown period, and even the frustrations of loss of work would have caused my male counterparts in some cases to even commit hideous crimes. But again, it goes back to us having proper regulation of these things. I will go on. Since the pandemic, violence against women and girls has grown. Acknowledgingly, the gender-based violence and harassment disappropriately affects women and girls. C-190, and there's a recommendation, 206, emphasize the need to adopt and integrate the gender response approach, thus contributing to building an equal society. Violence and harassment impacts people's health, dignity, and well-being. It also results in large costs for enterprises and put a strain on public services that have already suffered due to the pandemic. And I just want to say that J-Town Women would have, after our symposium, we would have started our campaign at the symposium because we had the president of the industrial court giving her experience and knowledge on what would have been required for us to embark on our campaign. Also, we would have written to the Minister of Labor, inviting him to meet with us to have a discussion on it. We did get a reply, which to date is not what J-Town Women expected, because I will just read one part of the letter, and it is important for us to identify with this. He says in his letter that he is, I don't want to misquote because the media is present. In fact, this issue is one of the ministry's priorities under the initiative to modernize labor legislative and policy frameworks. I don't know if the trade union movement or the general public has yet, or the working public of Trinidad and Tobago has yet been invited by the goodly minister to discuss this initiative, modern initiative that he's speaking about. And I will go on to read. So he says his modernized labor, legislative, and policy frameworks. In addition to these updates on the ratification of C-190, please be advised that an important ongoing initiative by the ministry related to the issue of sexual harassment in the workplace is stakeholders sensitization on national workplace policy on sexual harassment. I don't know how many of the listening public will remember when this policy on sexual harassment was passed. It was passed because of something that happened to a minister, where in the dead of the night, the Ministry of Labor went ahead and created this policy and implemented it. So I'm wondering to myself if C-190 will take the same initiative. I want to ask the minister or inform the minister that this is not it is not no metal business we are dealing with. It is not no place of work where one particular place of work where we actually have just maybe a stores, right? It is not just about that. It is about people's lives. And if he know more about people's lives and he have been involved in people's lives, he will come out of in a safe haven and deal with labor as he should deal with labor, and not hide behind all this fancy talk he have. And most of the time he put the technocrats in the department to deal with labor instead of coming and standing before labor and dealing with labor. It's time the Minister of Labor, and this particular convention deals with all aspects of life, and we must take it seriously in all countries all over the world. They did not wait for any government to come after the initiative of ratification to lobby and to have discussions. Those discussions must be held before, and I'm calling on the minister and actually the Prime Minister to inform them that if this is part of their unjust transition, it must stop now. And we want a just transition for all workers and for all people of Trinidad and Tobago. I thank you. God bless you all.
Thank you, Mrs. Gajada Innes. We now want to invite a man who is no stranger to the country to join us on the podium. I now introduce the President General of the Joint Trade Union Movement, Mr. Ansel Rudjee.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Chair. The chair of this very important meeting here this afternoon, Ms. Willetta Wilson, Anthony Rampasad, Project Manager of the Trinidad and Tobago Scrap Iron Dealers, and our very own Sati Gajada Innes, the interim chair of the Joint Trade Unions Movement's Women, Ms. Terry Ince of Working Women for Social Progress, and I'm advised that she will be on the virtual platform. Our comrade David Abdullah, the political leader of the movement for social justice, and of course, the host of this very important meeting and discussion here this afternoon, Mr. Alan Ferguson, President of the Trinidad and Tobago Scrap Iron Dealers. Comrades all present here, and all who are listening or viewing us on social media and the social media platforms here this afternoon, a very pleasant Sunday afternoon. Let me first start by saying that I am happy to be in the company of a number of persons here this afternoon, including those who are paying attention to what is being said here, because what it signals to me is that despite what they say, and there are many of them who propagate the contrary, despite what they say, there are still a significant number of people who would want to see a better Trinidad and Tobago. And your presence here this afternoon signal that you would have committed your time towards achieving that outcome. Let me also say immediately that that is not an easy task in this Banana Republic, Trinidad and Tobago today, that they have loaded 1,000,000 times full the propaganda against those who want to correct the ills that they commit. It is not an easy task. And bear with me for just a moment here while I spend a few minutes at the podium touching on a few issues. Trinidad and Tobago, comrades, brothers and sisters, citizens, in case you did not know it or understand it, Trinidad and Tobago today is in deep crisis. And that crisis was not brought on by COVID. Let us not be fooled into believing the propaganda that they sprout that it is because of COVID. Long before COVID-19 hit the shores of Trinidad and Tobago, our country was in crisis. COVID exposed a number of weaknesses, and it exposed a number of corrupt areas within the crisis, and of course it exacerbated the crisis. But let me go on. That you have a crisis with respect to COVID, and a number of persons, citizens, are dying on a daily basis. A significant number of our citizens are in the hospital. You have a crisis in the health sector. You have a crisis with respect to, and the project manager made the point, with respect to crime and violence, that which is not reported, there's a crisis there. You have a crisis on the labor landscape with many, many thousands of workers losing their jobs, and many, many more lost their jobs today, with many more to lose their jobs tomorrow and in the coming weeks and months ahead. And so you have many crises. But the one crisis I think may have escaped the attention of all, which is overarching and which is driving all of those crises, is that we have a crisis in governance in this country. That those who applied for and in fact got the job, they have fallen down on the job for quite a while. And as a result of that falling down on the job, it has resulted in the manifestation in many ways, including those which I have already described. And so if for one reason or another, you are seeing without the bat of an eyelid and with the full support of the Minister of Finance and their Prime Minister, and no attention at all is being paid to the many thousands of workers who lose their jobs, that is a part of the crisis in governance. They just don't care. If, for instance, the problem that you experience with your association, Trinidad and Tobago Scrap Iron Dealers, where they are now taking advantage and diverting all of the resources to where that belong to the 99% to 1%. That is a part of the crisis. And if tonight you're afraid to walk the streets, and I dare say that we ought to be afraid because criminals are roaming free because of their incapacity to deal with that issue, that is another part of the crisis. And how do we address all of these crises? I think I am heartened when I see groups like ours and yours and others coming together. Because you know what? Their strength comes from dividing us. If they can get you to believe, or everybody to believe that, listen, is every man for himself, or every woman for themselves, and therefore, you should be against the trade union movement and vice versa, them fellas only out for the self, or put us against you, and we don't understand the setup that we are in, we will continue to fight among ourselves, and they will be laughing all the way to the bank, and they will be laughing all the way anyway. And so you pay attention to what has been said in the budget. The biggest ruse in recent time in this country. A bright picture when in fact the reality is different. I want to say this afternoon that we stand vindicated in the trade union movement because we would have predicted that we were going to get all of these increases in the budget, and in fact it happened. And no matter how much they wine and dine and wine low to the ground because they reduced the VAT and pigtail, we saw that on social media, the fact of the matter is that people catching hell in this country. People can't see their way in this country. But you know what? The people who are responsible for that, who have fallen down on the job, they just don't care. Because what? They are okay. And they are okay to give away the resources to their friends. You pay attention to the commentary just recently, but it may have been yesterday, on the newspaper about IMF, and they would rate that up. IMF give them what, a good score. They're boasting about that. But if you have an international organization, the nature of which we know IMF to be, giving them good ratings in a time when people are suffering, you got to check yourself and examine that. IMF is not about enriching or improving the lives of ordinary people, you know. They are just about statistics and figures and so on. Balancing your book, they don't care what you do to get that. So when IMF tell them that they are on the right track, here's what they're on the right track for. Thousands of workers gone home. High prices in the groceries with prices rising. Inability to deal with crime and criminal activity. All of the social services collapse. Hospital in a mess. The numbers of persons dying as a result of the COVID-19 keep rising. And of course, their general inability to manage the country. And that is what IMF gave them a green light for. While on the other hand, another international rating agency, Moody's, say they would have been downgraded. So who is to believe? What we know, comrades, is that we are suffering on the ground. Regardless of what they say there, we, ordinary people, are catching hell in Trinidad and Tobago. And so it is as though we are serving a 5-year hard labor term, you know. 5 years hard labor, 1 year gone. With 4 more years hard labor with no chance of parole. None at all. And so it falls to us to respond. But as I talk about that crisis in governance, if we are not careful, we will end up with another crisis, and that is the crisis of our being somewhat in a state of paralysis. And I'm talking not now about us here, but generally. That all of these things are happening, but the response is not what it's supposed to be as yet. I'm impatient where that is concerned. Because every day that passes, and these people continue to perpetrate injustice against the people of this country, is another day that thousands and thousands of us continue to suffer. Do you know why we are today not under an SOE? And I don't care who say it. I have no problem if somebody says the right thing yesterday for me to underline it today. And if somebody says the wrong thing yesterday, I will also say that I believe it's the wrong thing. So this statement I'm about to make, I don't care who say it. But I think that it is correct because that's the position that we have held for quite a while in the trade union movement, in JTAM in particular. And that is, you know why we are not under lockdown today, Sunday? That they would have lifted the SOE earlier this week. You know why? It is for the convenience of Keith Rowley and the PNM's election in Tobago. That's the only reason. Now let me backtrack. You know why we had the SOE extended? It is for them to continue to take advantage of the citizens under the umbrella, under the ambit of COVID. And so you had an anti-people, anti-worker budget, and that people were expected in a normal situation to protest. But you can't protest because you're under a state of emergency. They extended that. But when they fell into their own trap and realized that it's days coming for that election and they cannot campaign legally, ups come they lift the state of emergency. But let me tell you this. Take warning now. That right after that, not too long after, it may be a week or a month, they're coming back with this state of emergency on the people of Trinidad and Tobago. Because right after that election, prices are going to continue to go spiraling high. Right after that election, they're trying to hold it down now. The price of fuel is going to be introduced at the pump. How many of us recognize that they have not adjusted it as yet at the pumps, even though they would have announced it in the budget? The only reason why they didn't do that as yet is because of election. Everything is geared to election to acquire more power, to use that power against the citizens of Trinidad and Tobago. So they come in with all of that, but they're timing it well. I wanted to tell Trinidad and Tobago through this medium, and of course to tell you too, that it is around election time they would come with all kinds of fancy promises, that which will not be fulfilled. We are with someone who asked for a job, but you can't trust the person who asked for the job. We are with someone who begged for the job up and down this country, but that person is the most arrogant person against the people who give him the job. Could you imagine that? And if I mash any corns here this afternoon, I'm sorry, but my job is about mashing corns in the interest of the people of Trinidad and Tobago. We cannot have it both ways, comrades. We cannot identify the same people who are against us every day and then hug them up on the one hand. It's either we for the cause for a better Trinidad and Tobago, or we are against it. But if we are for the cause for a better Trinidad and Tobago, that cause does not include the People's National Movement and Keith Rowley. Just think about it. There's no way that this country, in fact, let me just say that this PNM is different from any PNM that we have ever experienced. And the great Dr. Eric Eustace Williams, the vision he had for Trinidad and Tobago, the vision he had with the inception and the birth of PNM and through independence and so on, for the citizens of this country, Eric Williams will be turning in his grave. In fact, he will be rotating at probably 2,000-3,000 revs per minute in his grave, because that was not the Trinidad and Tobago he envisaged, where thousands of workers going home, crime out of control, health in shambles, and the leader couldn't care less. That is not the Trinidad and Tobago he envisaged. So forgive me, all the friends of that fella who know, and he really had no friend when it comes to him. The only friends he have, they reside in the 1%. Don't fool yourself. If you're from the 99%, you and Keith Rowley are no real friend. In fact, if he's your friend, if you are his friend, he's not your friend. So I am saying, comrades, here this afternoon, that we have a choice. We always have a choice. The only choice we don't have, two choices that you do not have, is to born and to die. None of us here made the choice for us to be here, to be born. And of course, you have no choice when the time comes, you're going to have to die. But you see, between your birth and death, you have many choices. And I want to suggest here this afternoon that the choice we must make is to identify with all of the suffering communities throughout this country, having them understand the problems that they're experiencing. The problems they're experiencing has nothing to do, it has, yes, COVID compounded it, but it has a lot to do, in fact, all to do with who's in charge and the measures that they are imposing on Trinidad and Tobago, the measures that they are unleashing on Trinidad and Tobago. And if we are to get a better deal, a fair share, a fair shake, a fair piece of the pie, because that is all we're asking for, you know. That is all you ask for. That is all we ask for in the trade union movement. We don't want more, but we don't want less. We want what is our just entitlement. But you see, when they fail to be able to manage the economy, and I did mention what Moody said in spite of what IMF said, when they fail and they have less revenue to go around, who do you think will suffer? It's not the 1%. They're making more money right now. Not the banks, they're declaring profits right now in this pandemic. It is us ordinary people will have to suffer. And so they will choke you to get blood out of stone to make up for the difference. And that is why they will come with all kinds of measures, including property tax. And let's remind ourselves as I close here, because I am happy that they were cornered, that they had to release this state of emergency, because we in the trade union movement were waiting with bated breath to be able to take to the streets. Because all over the world, where injustice is perpetrated on citizens, they take to the streets. And therefore we are happy and we'll take advantage of this window of an opportunity to take to the streets, to educate the citizens and to mobilize, because that is where the response will come from. Because it's going to get more difficult. Because as their revenue fall to be able to balance their books to satisfy IMF, they will come with all kinds of increased taxation and so on. So we are going to be facing increased electricity rates. We are going to be facing increased water rates. It started already. We are going to, yes, property tax. And all of those things at a time where the citizens can least afford. If there was ever a worse time for those things, it's now. But IMF don't care about that. Keith Rowley don't care, and the short midget don't care. Colm Imbo don't care about that. No, that is not their concern. So, the citizens now are asked to, by the 30th of this month, every citizen fill out a comprehensive document relating to property tax. And if you don't respond, here's what's going to happen to you. They are going to fine those people who didn't respond $5,000. 5,000 hard-earned dollars in this pandemic. You tell me that these people are right in their head? And you are asked to do the job of those who are supposed to be employed to do that job. You are now asked to do that job. So it's like what is happening at the gas station. You go to the gas station and you now, without even knowing it, took away a job because you fill in your own gas. Somebody supposed to do that, that person would have been paid to do that. You take away that job because I don't know, if there's any filling station where I have to go to the pump and pump my own gas, that is not a filling station for me. I'm a union representative, I represent workers. I can't take away the job. And we will come to the point where you'll go to all of those fast foods, the bigger outlets, and you gotta serve yourself, but still pay. you take away another person's job. Just think about it. And in this regard, where there's an opportunity, if they want to deal with the backlog, they can employ, if even for a temporary period of time, a number of our young persons to do this job. They're asking citizens to do it. So you are now to fill out a comprehensive document. And if you make a mistake on that document, you know what happened? If you make a mistake on that document carries a declaration. You know what that declaration is? You declare to be true and correct and so on. And if you make a mistake, you are liable to be fined. And so under it is Section 32 of the Valuation of Land Act, you can be fined. It's a criminal offense to, one, make a false or a bad declaration, or, of course, not fill out that form at all. If we were conscious in Trinidad and Tobago, understanding the pain and suffering and hurt that these people are inflicting upon us, understanding who are for us and who are against us, if we were at a level of consciousness, by that date, the 30th of November, every single citizen in this country would have lined up at the valuation division and dumped that form for them. But that is not where we are right now, unfortunately. And so mine is the responsibility to tell you the problem, point you to the solution. Tell you the problem, who for you, tell you who against you, and invite all of us to embark on a journey for a better Trinidad and Tobago. And I congratulate the comrades on this initiative, Drive for Progress. We understand why they would not have given, despite what they say, we understand why they would not have given permission. We understand why they are preparing right now to deny us permission to hit the streets. We understand all of that. Because what they want any day, anytime, is a police commissioner that will do their bidding. That is what they want. And that is the dictatorship that we are under. But we will respond to that. But may I just say in closing that it is a good initiative, that this particular forum that gave me the opportunity, long time I want to talk, but they're holding down the thing, gave me the opportunity to speak, that we must have many more of these. That the drive for progress, that journey must continue. That drive must be a drive within us, within our bosom, within our bellies. That drive for a better Trinidad and Tobago. Because Trinidad and Tobago has long run off the road. We are off the road. We are down a steep hill, pell-mell, no brakes, no steering, and we blindfold. And of course, we can't even talk. You can't even call for help because you have on mask now. Trinidad and Tobago is heading for a major crash. And if we are to come back on the road to progress, if we are to continue with the drive to progress, let us invite all like-minded, all of those, let's get them on board, and let us drive towards achieving a better Trinidad and Tobago. Thank you very much.
And that was the President General of the Joint Trade Union Movement, Mr. Ansel Roger. Next on the agenda, we invite Ms. Terry Ince. Ms. Terry Ince of Women Working for Social Justice. She will be joining us virtually.
Thank you. Can you all hear me okay? I will not join on camera because I have a very unstable connection. But let me offer greetings to all my fellow speakers, with special greetings to Dr. David Abdallah and the MSJ. As was said, I am Terry Ince, and I'm pleased to represent the Women Working for Social Progress. Our discussion today, our theme, is Drive for Progress, which is poignant as we approach the 30th anniversary of 16 Days of Activism, which is an annual international campaign that kicks off on 25th of November, the International Day for the Elimination of Violence Against Women. And it continues until December 10th, which is Human Rights Day. It was started by activists at the inaugural Women's Global Leadership Institute in 1991, and it continues to be coordinated each year by the Center for Women's Global Leadership. It is used as an organizing strategy by individuals and organizations around the world to call for the prevention and elimination of violence against women and girls. The global theme for this year's 16 Days of Activism Against Gender-Based Violence is Orange the World, End Violence Against Women Now. But in the Caribbean, our theme is End Violence Against Women and Girls Now. It is everyone's business. And so what we want to talk about today, what I'd like to propose today in our discussion, is why it is everyone's business. Working Women for Social Progress began its drive for progress in 1985 by activist and writer Merle Hodge and others. Over the past 36 years, Working Women has successfully spearheaded campaigns and initiatives to address economic issues, ending violence against women, non-traditional employment and training for women, vacation camps, and defending human rights and representation. So here we are in 2021, emerging from a countrywide state of emergency while in the middle of the COVID-19 pandemic. And as we identify ways to re-energize our economy while addressing our social issues, we are still calling for an end to violence against women and girls and highlighting that it is everyone's business. For as COVID-19 raged through our country and still continues to do that, and measures were put in place to mitigate the economic impact of the pandemic, we know with all certainty that the incidences of physical and sexual violence against women and girls in Trinidad and Tobago increased exponentially. It is not enough to read out the names or quote the statistics of the women and girls that have been murdered or sexually assaulted since the initial response to the pandemic in March of 2020. We know that the violence metered out is far more prevalent than the numbers portray, because everyone does not report the violence that is meted against them. For violence against women and girls is not limited to physical or sexual violence. It includes economic violence or financial violence, psychological and emotional violence. So as we recognize and applaud the institutional mechanisms that were put in place to combat violence against women and girls, such as the National Domestic Violence Hotline or 800-SAVE, the Gender-Based Violence Unit of the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service, which was put in place in in January of 2020, an emergency phone number 999, the Victims and Witness Support Unit, along with the increased judiciary measures realized through the amendments to the Domestic Violence Act, and particularly the changes to the protection orders and reporting of domestic violence. We recognize and applaud all of those initiatives that have been put in place. But still, despite these measures, the issue prevails. So how do we drive for progress? How do we drive for progress while we continue to violate the rights of half of our population? Through unequal pay for equal work, unequal access to opportunities for financial and economic independence, unequal health care through lack of choice for sexual and reproductive health care, unequal access to education, particularly during the pandemic. The impact of COVID-19 has made the poor and vulnerable poorer and more vulnerable. As we swiftly moved to a virtual model to address educational and economic needs, we saw the inequalities which existed in poorer and marginalized communities, often headed by women. For example, while many individuals may be in the possession of a mobile phone, it may not be a smartphone. which is required to access many of the applications or most of the applications used to support the social measures implemented to mitigate the impact of the pandemic, including education of our children. While we have households that may not even have electricity, but we are expected to teach our children virtually when our children may not even be in possession of a laptop or a desktop or a tablet or whatever device is needed for the child to be taught virtually. Women and girls in rural and marginalized communities particularly were even more isolated, and because of the lockdown, were left more vulnerable as there was no escape from their perpetrators who may live in the same household. The temporary escape of going to school or work was therefore eliminated. So how do we drive for progress? I have a few suggestions. Let us begin by understanding the unique needs of our communities. We're not a homogeneous society. We don't all walk and talk and work the same way. By listening and collaborating with community and youth leaders to address the community and environmental needs, and I stress environmental needs. Let us improve the infrastructure of the entire nation so that no one is indeed left behind, so that Wi-Fi access is available to everyone at no to low cost. Let us build the capacity of community police so that they have the necessary resources to address the issues, family and domestic violence in the community confidentially and expeditiously. Let us collaborate with all stakeholders to ensure that initiatives and programs being implemented are A, necessary, and B, sustainable. Let us ensure that members of the community have a stake in the future of their community. We do that by inviting community members to participate in honest and open dialogue, not just to talk and take notes, but to follow up with timely action, moving from recommendation to implementation. Finally, let us all ensure that at least 3 issues raised and solution offered during this drive for progress are fast-tracked from rhetoric to sustainable implementation. I thank you for your time and for listening.
Thank you, Ms. Ince of Working Women. Let us now move on to another dynamic speaker. He's a man who's been very instrumental in making this event a reality. His hard work and dedication can be reflected in our event today. Let's introduce to the podium the leader of the movement for social justice, Mr. David Abdullah.
Thank you very much, Sister Chair, Sister Willetta Wilson, Secretary of the Trinidad and Tobago Scrap Iron Dealers Association, who is chairing our rally this afternoon, President of the Trinidad and Tobago Scrap Iron Dealers Association, Brother Alan Ferguson, and other executive members and members of TT-CEDA, Sister Terry Ince, who we just heard representing Working Women, Sister Sati Gajada Innes, Interim Chair of the Joint Trade Union Movement Women, my comrade for very many years, Comrade Ansel Roger, President General of the Oilfields Workers Trade Union and President of the Joint Trade Union Movement. Sisters and brothers, I want to just recognize 1 or 2 who are here this afternoon. We have with us Brother David Forbes, Secretary General of the Trinidad and Tobago Postal Workers Union, and Brother Farmer, who is the President of the Aviation, Communication and Allied Workers Union. And I want to recognize Sister Radhika Golbans, the Deputy Political Leader of the Movement for Social Justice. Sisters and brothers all who are here at Signature Hall in Chaguanas, and of course to those who are viewing or listening live on radio or on television or on our various social media platforms. A very good afternoon to one and all. I want to add to that question that those who have gone before me have addressed in different ways. Why drive for progress? And I want to quote something for you this afternoon, which many may not be familiar with, but which we ought to know. So I'm going to read. We, the people of Trinidad and Tobago, respect the principles of social justice and therefore believe that the operation of the economic system should result in the material resources of the community being so distributed as to subserve the common good, that there should be adequate means of livelihood for all, that labor should not be exploited or forced by economic necessity to operate in inhumane conditions, but that there should be opportunity for advancement on the basis of recognition of merit, ability, and integrity. Now, some of you may think that that comes from the policy document or the constitution of the MSJ, because I started off by saying that we respect the principles of social justice. But sisters and brothers, this is one element, one component of the preamble to the Constitution of Trinidad and Tobago. All of us in Trinidad and Tobago, but more particularly those who have responsibility for governance, past and present, are supposed to be operating this country on the basis of this. They're supposed to be operating the economic system so that the material resources of the community are distributed for the common good, not the good of a few, but for the common good. Labor should not be exploited or forced to work in inhumane conditions because of economic necessity. That is what they're supposed to do according to the Constitution of Trinidad and Tobago, which is the highest law in the land. But sisters and brothers, today, Trinidad and Tobago is not that. As we have heard from Brother Roger, as we have heard from Sister Terriens, as we have heard from Sister Sati, Trinidad and Tobago today is not equal, it is unequal. Trinidad and Tobago today is one where there is injustice, where there is discrimination, where there is exclusion, where some are treated differently from others, where half the population is discriminated against on the basis of gender, where there's climate injustice. In other words, Trinidad and Tobago today is not what we are supposed to be according to the Constitution of Trinidad and Tobago. And that is why we have to drive for progress, because we have not yet achieved what we say we ought to have as a country. But let me quote somebody on the issue of social justice. I'm going to quote Pope Francis, and this is what he had to say, and I'm quoting: "Guaranteeing justice for all men and women is not possible while a few people control most of the world's wealth and everyone else's right to a dignified life is disregarded." End of quote. So let's take that to Trinidad and Tobago. Guaranteeing justice in Trinidad and Tobago for all men and women is not possible while a few people in Trinidad and Tobago control most of our wealth and benefit from that, and everyone else's life, everyone else's right to a dignified life is disregarded. That is where we are. When CEDA cannot get to tender, or their tender is thrown on the scrap heap. Why? Because you are not part of the elite in the society, then Your lives are being disregarded because the system is set up so that a few people can control the wealth of Trinidad and Tobago. And that is why we have to drive for progress, because we have to change that. But let me quote an economist, not this one, but a Nobel economics winner, Joseph Stiglitz, American. And he said this: growing inequality within most countries around the world is one of the critical issues facing the world today. People everywhere sense that it is morally wrong. We sense that it cannot be justified. We sense that it is dividing our societies and undermining our democracies. And we are right in sensing this harm. End of quote. Growing inequality within most countries. And I want to say that within Trinidad and Tobago, we have been getting more and more inequality. And the pandemic worsened it. We heard Sister Ince talk about those children who didn't have a tablet, didn't have Wi-Fi, didn't have a smartphone, didn't have a laptop. Children who were at home without a parent supervising them because the parent had to go to work in order to get a few dollars to put some food on the table. So we have inequality in education, we have inequality in healthcare, we have inequality in terms of who gets contracts and who doesn't get contracts. Because we have a contractocracy where a few big companies get all the contracts and make billions, while other people have to scrunt and struggle to survive. So we have growing inequality in Trinidad and Tobago. Sisters and brothers, our drive for progress is about ensuring that progress is not just for a few, because the truth is that a few people in this country are progressing and have progressed very well. A few people in this country don't have to worry about anything in the world. They have private security to guard them. They live in a gated community. They have millions of dollars banked abroad. So if, as the IMF want to get a devaluation, their money coming back into Trinidad and Tobago would be worth that much more. They have properties like peas. They don't have anything to worry about. Their children go to the best schools and they could pay for tutors to privately tutor them online. They don't have to worry about device and all those things. They don't have to worry about Wi-Fi. They don't have to worry about healthcare. They take a private jet and fly out of the country if they want medical care outside of Trinidad and Tobago. So there are some people who have been progressing very well in this country, while others are drowning in their economic difficulties today. That is reality. And so we have to drive for progress so that there could be progress for all, not just for the few. We have to drive for progress so that the material resources of the community are distributed to subserve the common good, not the good of the few, but the good of all. That is what we have to drive, why we have to drive for progress. Sisters and brothers, we have to bring about change. But I want to talk about change for a moment. Because you see, in 1937, people came together, and we know what happened on the 19th of June. There was a general strike, and there were popular protests throughout the country. And as a result of that, we got some major change. The change, you see, was that our foreparents were fighting for in 1937 was not simply to change which government was in office, because of course in those days it was a colonial government. But it wasn't simply about that. They were fighting for the ownership of the oil industry to be in the hands of the people of Trinidad and Tobago. They were fighting for the sugar industry to be in the hands of the people of Trinidad and Tobago. They were fighting for the right to vote for everybody. They were fighting for the right to organize trade unions and have collective agreements so that people could get decent pay and decent work. They were fighting for proper housing and proper health care and for educational opportunities for all, because in 1937, very few people had the opportunity to go to secondary school, far less university. They were fighting for the right of people, African and Indian people, to get a job above that of foreman, because in those days, in sugar and in oil, you couldn't rise above foreman. Supervisor and up was for the local white and the expatriate. Same was true in the public service. So they were fighting for very fundamental things. And you know what? That struggle of the mass of the people coming together in a united struggle, we won all those things. Our foreparents won all of those benefits. And in 1970, there was another uniting of people in a common struggle. And again, it was not simply about changing the government that was there. It was fighting for the commanding heights of the economy to be in the hands of the people. And just before 1970, BP that was here, BP was out. BP is back here now. Shell left after 1970. Shell has come back in now. Royal Bank of Canada eventually left. They're back here now. So they were fighting in 1970 for us, the people, we the people of Trinidad and Tobago, that the material resources of the community would serve the common good. But those gains that we won after 1970 are also and have already been reversed. They were fighting for African and Indian people of color to be able to work in the banks. Because in the banks in 1970, it was only the local white community that you could see working even as a teller in the bank. That battle was won. And we eventually got control of the oil industry. Now, it has gone back to foreign hands. And Patriotic, which was a company owned by the OWQ, was blanked for the refinery. But we will soon see a foreign company coming in. And CEDA wants to get projects, major projects. You're going to see foreign companies coming in. So the gains of that 1970 revolution are also being reversed, as the gains of 1937 revolution are also being reversed. And so what we have to focus on, sisters and brothers, today is the need for us to change the economic and the social and political system and the relations of power in this country. That is what we have to change. Because unless and until we change the economic relations of power, then we won't be able to change the fact that a few people control the wealth, while everybody else's right to a dignified life is disregarded. We have to change the relations of economic power to do that. We have to change the relations of social power between men and women, between adults and children, if we want to address the issue of gender-based violence and violence against children. We have to change the relations of political power if we are to achieve the following, and I want to quote again, that we have asserted our belief in a democratic society in which all persons may, to the extent of their capacity, play some part in the institutions of national life, and thus develop and maintain due respect for lawfully constituted authority. You know where that comes from? The Constitution of Trinidad and Tobago. But we don't have the possibility to play some role in the institutions of national life. We are not involved in the decision making in this country, the ordinary man and woman in this country. And that is why you have a system, a political system, where you have embedded, regardless of the individual, embedded in the system, prime ministerial dictatorship. Regardless of who is there, that system is going to result in prime ministerial dictatorship. And so unless and until we change the relations of political power, we will not achieve what is in our Constitution, the preamble to our Constitution. And so, sisters and brothers, we have to we have to focus on changing the system. We need to do that. We need to do that by what we are doing today, by raising consciousness, by what I call developing a revolution of the mind, by breaking free of the shackles that keep us entrapped in the system. And as we entrapped in the system, we're spinning top in mud and so on, and not finding our way out of our problems. We have to tackle the real fundamental problems and change the system by building a movement of people united on the ground, like in 1937, like in 1970. Because when you have a mass of people united on the ground across lines of race and religion and geography and gender and age, when you have that united movement, that is what is powerful enough to change, to challenge the status quo and change the system so that all of us could have a better life. I want to end with one last quote. And this quote says, the quote is this: "Democracy finally rests on a higher power than Parliament. It rests on an informed and cultivated and alert public opinion. The members of Parliament are only representatives of the citizens. They cannot represent apathy and indifference. They can play the part allotted to them only if they represent intelligence and public spiritedness. Nothing has so demonstrated in the past 6 years," and this was in 1962, "the capacity of the people of Trinidad and Tobago than their remarkable interest in the public affairs. The development and expansion of that interest is the joint responsibility of the government, the parliament, the political parties, and relevant civic organizations." That was Dr. Eric Williams speaking on August 31st, 1962, in his address to the people of Trinidad and Tobago on the occasion of our attaining political independence. And that is why we are here. Because you see, the parliament and the government are failing to address and elevate interest in public affairs and public spiritedness. And so we, as civil society, as civic organizations, we have to do that. We have to develop that revolution of the mind. We have to build that informed and cultivated and alert public opinion, which, as Dr. Williams said, is that higher power than Parliament upon which democracy rests. That is why we are driving for progress. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. David Abdullah, leader of the Movement for Social Justice. We have another set of speakers who have made a commitment to be here today to share their concerns with you. We have a slight scheduling conflict, so we are making a slight adjustment. Right now, I'm going to invite Mr. Rondell Fields, President of the Single Fathers Association. He will be joining us virtually.
Good evening, everyone. I hope you guys are hearing me there. I'm really sorry that I couldn't be there in person. I was really excited when Mr. Ferguson extended this invitation to me because I like the modus operandi. I like the agenda of coming together, groups, associations coming together. Whereas I see it may be labor movement, it may be women's groups, I see people coming together, and that is what I believe Trinidad and Tobago needs at a point in time like this. Yes, my priority most of the times is always advocating for fathers, advocating for men by wide and large. But I see the value of coming together. So today I don't even want to only advocate for men. I could speak about the issues that we've had with men during a pandemic like this, where there are no social spaces, the failure of past governments and present governments to put spaces for men to speak, and we've seen the increase in intimate partner violence. I could speak on all the issues about men not being able to get public assistance for their children. But I realized during this pandemic, and anyone know I am not a political person at all, but during this pandemic, men and women need to work together. And I want to wish a happy belated International Men's Day blessing on every man that is hearing my voice. I mean, many people who sit in there may not even known that it was International Men's Day on Friday, and that in itself is something. That in itself shows sometimes the way we've forgotten the men in our society. Sometimes the way we speak, we forgot that men are part of our social fabric as well. And I want us as men and women to work together. And that was the team. And I want to pitch off of that team this year for International Men's Day. Men and women finding a way to coexist, finding a way to correlate, finding a way to exist together in peace and harmony, even though we have our exclusive issues, issues that pertain to us exclusively. We must find a way to move together. I understand the groups like the labor movement. I understand there are groups that are a number of different organizations that are the scrap iron dealers as well. But within these groups, there are men that are committed to being better. There are men that are committed to standing up for Trinidad and Tobago. Even those who are politically affiliated here, their stand today as well is a commitment to see things get better in Trinidad and Tobago. And I want this government, and not only this one, any other one that is to come, because post this one, we wasn't seeing it either, to commit themselves to the minds of the people, the mental health of people. We speak about everything beside those things, particularly in a time like a pandemic, when men and women both are going off of their hinges because they've lost their jobs. Men both are going off of their hinges because there is no space for them to de-stress. The Sport Avenue is one of the only places where men would go on the football pitch, the basketball pitch, or the cricket field. They was rendered unable to go there due to the fact of the public health orders that were put in place. There were no social spaces for men to vent, for families to vent in community areas. As I said, I just don't want to talk about men alone. Women going through the thing as well, but men and women together are going through human issues in this pandemic. How do they continue to parent? How do they continue to place substitute teachers while they are on this, going through this pandemic? And I want to commend nothing else, the whole vibe of coming together. And let's not only come together as organizations, but come together as men and women, trying our best to change the narrative, because a lot of the advocacy is always separating genders. A lot of the advocacy is always separating men from women at a time when we need to stand together, at a time when men and women need their children, need to stand together for their children, at a time when divorced couples, also separated parents, need to find maturity to end their past intimate relationships and forge parental partnerships together. So I also appeal to the advocates for us to strengthen the narrative of unity in the family, unity between men and women in the workspace, unity between men and women in every relative, any type of relationship men and women need to have. Because at this point in time, daily, we are seeing men and women dying from this COVID pandemic. So I want to encourage us to keep this move moving, but for us to move and drive and move with progress, as we want to see, men and women, no matter what organization you're a part of, no matter what scope of life you're a part of, need to be able to stand together, support each other during their issues, encourage each other to get out of them, and work together for a better Trinidad and Tobago. The only way we will be able to drive for any progress is if men and women unite in heart and press forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Fields. It is said that the very essence of leadership is that you have to have vision. And this is what our next speaker has. He has a vision, and it is to ensure a better life for citizens of this country, particularly for those in the organization in which he leads. He is the man responsible for the vision which we know today as Drive for Progress. Let me now introduce the president of the Trinidad and Tobago Scrap Iron Dealers Association, Mr. Alan Ferguson.
Good night, everyone. I want to thank you all for taking the Sunday off to be here with us. I want to thank all my brothers and sisters on top of the stage with us. I think it's one of my biggest days in my life that I could stand close to Mr. Roger. I think when we start this, I told them we're going to make a difference. And when I hear all the speakers speak just now, I am saying this again. And some things in life this happen to bring people together. And I think what it did us as an organization is to really put us together with other people. And I think this is what is reached now today. Because if it didn't happen to us, I don't think today would be a special day like this today. Because today is one day, but I think it will be having a lot of more bigger event than what we have here today. What I would like you to do, I want us to pay attention. I want us to observe the no smoking sign. Fasten your seat belt. We are ready to take off with this movement. This movement, this drive for progress is not a movement, it's only one occasion you're going to see us. I'm going to be truthful in what I say today. And what I say today, if you don't like the truth, take off your radio, take off your television, or step outside until the question is ready to answer. But I'm always going to stick with the truth. Because some of us in Trinidad is too, whilst we want to get everybody together, I still want to talk the truth. Because the truth is always set whoever free. It's only when you start to lie, like the people in Petrotrin, or what they tell us Friday, and one set of lies, the truth going to set me free. But I'm not going to deal with Petrotrin today, because I have done already say, this week we're going to have a news conference to deal with Petrotrin. And I am telling my organization and my people are surrounding me. We're not going to let Trinidad and Tobago alone know what they did to us, what Petrotrin did to us. We're going to invite the international news, like CNN and BBC and all these other people. And if they think it will happen, draw my attention for this week coming here. I will expose Petrotrin in what they did to our organization. A big, 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 big lie. And we have the proof to show them that they lied what they had done to us. We're going to show them this week. But I want to concentrate on this. I don't want to let Petrotrin take over tonight what I have to say. Brothers and sisters, and everybody who joined with us, Trade Union, David Abdullah, everybody, Trinidad is in a state. And if we, as people, don't see that, something is wrong to us. I remember when I was small growing up, when we have problems like this, most of the time is the trade unions you hear coming out and representing the people. And some people in Trinidad, because it's PNM and UNC, and when it is in them feet, when it's against them, they want to be against the trade unions. They have all kinds of things bad to say about the trade unions. But they forget that it's the trade union movements from way down, from when they brought us here, and had us cut down all these set of trees and all kind of things to plant the cane. And when it's time to give you a little extra money, you know what they do? When we strike, they went and bring out some other people. We brothers and sisters from India, they went and bring them here to Trinidad. Break the strike. And that is what they're trying to do with us now. And that is why we, as Indian and African brothers, we need to stay strong with one another. Not because I say something bad, we need to run about it. We need to stay strong. I'm going to tell you something that you need to know. In this country, they don't like African people. I know they don't like to hear this thing, and I'm afraid to hear it. I am not a politician. I am a free man that like to speak the truth. Any African like to get in business or is leaders of organization, they always like to bring them down. I watch and I pay close attention to this bidding for this with Mr. Roger. I pay clear attention to it. If we, as people, as government, you know this organization have all the skills, all the people to able to run this mill. You have all the skill, they have all the people. They win the bid. And you can just sit down with them and work out what you need to work out. You choose to take it to another level because you don't like to give us nothing. You don't like to give us nothing. And the same thing you did to we. You don't like to give me nothing. If it was the other group, you would have sat down with them and work out all the difference. It's because a black man is in charge of the organization. Only have problem with it. Only have problem. But I always remember, I used to hear from my father saying, slavery days, when the slave run out and run to go free, it was the next man like myself, we telling, hey, look, you don't run there, you know. No, you don't go on there. It's a black man like myself. We used to do it. This is reality, brother. This is the truth. And don't play telling me I don't know race, you know. Because when my mother died when I was 12 years, is an Indian woman behind me and grew me up. Me know nothing about no race. I just want to talk the truth. Or they don't like us. And that is why we say we will join with every single organization to make a change in this country. Enough is enough. Enough is enough, man. We need to organize more, stronger, and show them how we gonna make a difference. The trade unions can't do it by themselves. We can't do it by ourselves. We need to join with every single organization in Trinidad and Tobago want this country to be better. If you like to see women getting killed, don't join with us. If you like to see nobody getting work in Trinidad, don't join with us. If you like to see what's going on in this country, don't join with us. But we saying, join with us to make a change with this country. Come and join with us and be begging on you. Let us make some change. Because you see them politicians and them, listen to me. Man, we can't let this thing continue so. It's benefiting them, you know. It's benefiting them. Look what is taking place. Look. Look how much young people getting killed. All these things that need to be changed. Every single day in a small country like this. And we need to make a change towards people too. We need to stop because this one, you don't like this one, you don't want this one to come and join with me, you don't like this one, you don't like this one, and all kind of foolishness. This is not the time for it. This is the time the country needs change. And I am 100% ready to work with all different organizations. I am ready to work with the trade union movements. I am feeling so nice and joy that we start off this. And I'm telling you all, remember today's date. Remember what today's is. They go try to mash it up, because they go want to come and start all kind of foolishness and tell people, because let me tell you all something. They don't start to tell me, hey, don't go out here with this one. They don't like to see me with this one. I don't like to see me. Hey, don't call me to tell me them foolish thing again. Don't tell me who to be with. Don't call me and tell me, don't go with this one and don't go with that one. Don't call me at all and tell me them things, because you're wasting your time. Every day somebody calling me, hey, don't go with them, don't go with this, don't go with that one, and don't go with that one. Listen to me. I'm going with everybody who want to make a change with Trinidad and Tobago. Right? It hurt me. It hurt me as an organization. Brothers and sisters, if you know what they have done to us, I don't want to take the day to let you know what they have done to us. But I just want, before I move on more anymore, director, play what you had to play for me, and then I will come back. Play it for me, please.
For anybody who changes his principles depending on whom he is dealing, that is not a man who can lead a nation.
The very right to be human is denied every day to hundreds of millions of people as a result of poverty and the unavailability of basic necessities such as food, jobs, water and shelter, education, health care, and a healthy environment.
The time for the healing of the wounds has come. The moment to bridge the chasms that divide us has come. The time to build is upon us. We pledge ourselves to liberate all our people from the continuing bondage of poverty, deprivation, suffering, gender, and other discrimination. We commit ourselves to the construction of a complete, just, and lasting peace. We understand it still that there is no easy road to freedom. We know it well that none of us acting alone can achieve success. We must therefore act together as a united people for national reconciliation, for nation building, for the birth of a new world. Let there be justice for all. Let there be peace for all.
I have cherished the ideal.
Right. You hear? The people came before us, tell us the only way we could go forward with it is that we must unite with one another. We must forget what they call us race. Because the politician and them, some of the politicians, not all, they like to divide us. And we must see as people, we can't let them carry down the road now. We reach a stage that we have to unite with one another. And we have to work with one another to make a better Trinidad and Tobago. Brothers and sisters, we're going down a bad road. And I don't even think no politician could help you come back up the road. Because too much of them. I ain't talking about some good ones, because David Abdullah, oh gosh, we know he's a fighting, struggling man. He's a good man. We're talking about them who want to get on the kitty, the money. All right? So, my job is not to stay long. My job is just to tell you, listen to me. We need to unite with one another again. We need to put on more of this. And I tell them, listen to me, all your fast and all your seatbelt, because we come in, you know. And this time when you see we come in strong, you know. Because we're going to make a difference. We're going to make a difference. I just want to go into one more area. One more area I want to go in. And I think all of y'all will agree with me. You know what we have? Here what we have in Trinidad. We, the poor people, we playing a football match with them. And them fellas and them on top the hill. And we kicking the ball up the hill. But every time we kick the ball up the hill, the ball coming back and scoring on me. You know why? You know why? Them don't need to do nothing on top there now, you know. All them need to do is just leave the ball, let it come back and score on me. So what we want to do as an organization here now is to level the playing field. Level the playing field. The playing field is not level. Government come, government go, and they ain't making the attempt to level this playing field. And we saying, if we walk, or if we run, or whatever we do, we're going to end up leveling the playing field. Because let me tell you, all over the world, people come together to make change for the country, you know. And if we don't take this up on ourselves today, from today, to let them know enough is enough, and we need to level this playing field, because it's not level. Because if it was level, it will not be like how it's taking place. We need to straighten it out. Too much of crime, too much of brothers killing one another, too much of people in jail for nothing, for small nothing. And me seeing one of the other people in jail, you know, it's only two types of people in jail, Indian and African. Indian and African fall in the jail. And the other people ain't seen them at all. Them ain't doing nothing wrong. Them is doing nothing wrong. Them very nice and cool and decent. It's only African and Indian doing wrong. And all the rest of people doing right. It can't be right. So we have to fix all of that. And how we go fix it? Putting myself in a group together and say, listen to me, what is the next plan? And I begging all the people who come here today and all the people, all the organization, the trade union, David Abdullah and them, although let we waste no more time, let me get back one time again to a meeting and say, when we come in again, let them know we are them. We coming at them. And this time, we must let them see the numbers. Because of the COVID thing, they feel because we can't handle a lot of people inside of here, but let them see the numbers. Because the numbers make a difference. And that's why we're asking all different organizations, join with us to make the difference. Join with us. Forget you and this one in talking and that one and this one in talking. Let me join. We want Trinidad to be better. We want to make a difference for Trinidad. The way we're going now, you feel God pleased with me? God ain't pleased with me at all. Because even church people, silence, stay in silence. You all need to come with us too, you know. Because to make the change, all of us need to join with one another. Baptists, Hindus, Muslims, Christian, Catholic. Everybody needs to join to change this place. We can't change this, so all of us need to change. And when you see we make that change, you go see all them politicians get into, go see how this country have enough money, you know, that could make this place a little better, you know. The place have money. But it's just one set of people getting all. One set of people getting all. And that is why so much of crime. with the poor people. A man can eat a food, good. And we want to blame them. But when you're doing the crime on top and you're doing and getting away, but them ain't getting away because them ain't had the head like you. But you feel you're doing crime too when you set up a bid for somebody to get the bid to win it. That's not crime. That's a crime too. So brothers and sisters, before I leave here today, and let me tell you something, it's such a joy with me to be on this table here with these brothers, and Mr. Andrew Roger and all the trade union movements people. It's such a great move for me. God has intervened. Because let me tell you something, without these people, we can't do nothing. So brothers, let me stay strong together. Sisters, let me stay strong together. And let me start to mobilize Trinidad and Tobago for whatever we decided to move forward with to be better for Trinidad and Tobago. I thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ferguson, President of TTCEDA. Another speaker who is joining us virtually, he made the effort to join us today, Mr. Lonsdale Williams. He is the chairman of the Congress of the People.
Thank you, and good evening to all. Good evening, Madam Chairperson. Good evening, members of the panel, members of the media, ladies and gentlemen. I bring to you greetings as chairman of the Congress of the People from our political leader, Mr. Kurt Sinnett, and by extension, all our members. The Congress of the People agrees that there is a need for a collaborative approach to the multiple problems currently being faced by our citizens in every sphere of our daily lives. Indeed, it is a time that we live by the words that we so proudly sing. And we must live by these words because they are, and I quote, "Here every creed and race find an equal place." End of quote. Part of our national anthem. Sadly, at this time, these are just mere words. As we have heard before, we are a country in crisis, and history will indicate that we have not yet reached a place where we can truly stand and say we are united. But we are constantly being divided by those who know that in division they can rule and conquer. I have listened intently to the previous statements from the Drive for Progress, from our speakers today, and I recognized one thing, that unless we come together with true purpose, there will be no true results. If we look at the recently concluded COPD Conference of Parties 26 in Glasgow, Scotland, we would recognize that the mere fact that some type of agreement was reached meant having to give something up. And this is what we as individuals, individual groups, and individuals, homes, etc., will have to do in order to ensure that Trinidad and Tobago wins. Our future depends on what we do. What we do today affects not only our tomorrow, but our future generation, and that of our children, our grandchildren, and even our great-grandchildren. We must take concrete steps to ensure that equality among us is not just a byword, but truly realized, that every individual, every business person, every single mother or single father, every family household, every one of us must be given the same opportunity. We must be ready at every turn to protect the most vulnerable in our society, to provide hand-ups and not just handouts. We must begin to empower our people. There are many new and emerging industries, and we must aggressively begin to embrace those in a collective way, where we leave no one. Today, we, the Congress of the People, we stand with the Drive for Progress, and we extend our hand to all stakeholders, and we make this statement unequivocally clear. We cannot wait until 2025. We cannot wait until 2030. The opportunity is now. The late Martin Luther King states, and I quote, "We must use time creatively in the knowledge that time is always right to do." Let me say that. It is always the ripe and right time to do, and that time starts now. Let us make this work, because if we fail to make this work, our future is in peril. I would like to end with a paraphrase from the mighty King Austin. And we know the price for progress is high. But the price for progress is not only high. I want to say the drive for progress must be higher and sustainable. For again, if we fail to do that, we fail our nation. I want to thank you. I want to thank you for inviting the COP to this session. I want to say thank God for the Drive for Progress. Thank God for all our speakers. And thank God that there are still citizens that believe that together we are stronger. God bless you, and God bless Trinidad and Tobago. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lonsdale Williams. Our last speaker for the evening is Ms. Valdine Shears. She is Ms. Valdine Shears of the All for Bracelets Alert movement, the ABBA movement.
Good afternoon. Is it night by now? Good day all protocols observed. I hope you all are hearing me clearly. I'll start by recalling when two incidents related to gender-based violence and abuse caused me to cry tears of joy. Last year, April 28, 2020, the Electronic Devices Bill was passed by law. I cried. Exactly 1 year later, on April 28 this year, an offender was outfitted with the first GPS monitoring device in one of this country's courts, lending that victim or survivor maybe her first sense of safety and protection in however long. The device would have been mandated alongside the country's existing protection order under the Domestic Violence Act of 1999, which has since been amended and commemorated its 30th year this year. And while I feel as if some headway has been made, we have so much more to do. Through a myriad of agencies and individuals, such as the Coalition Against Domestic Violence, the Victim and Witness Support Unit of the TTPS, the establishment of the GBV unit on January 21st, 2020 of the Trinidad and Tobago Police Services, and all those who are affiliated with shelters and associations, organizations, and individuals who fight against domestic violence, who fight against gender-based violence. Yet still, we have so much more to do. I'll tell you what we need to see done, because it goes back to addressing and, if necessary, lobbying for and forcing legislative change. As a survivor and having stayed in a shelter once, I can tell you what I saw being focused on: counseling of the abused, whether it was male, female, or a child. The country's justice system needs now to see the focus counseling for the abusers. That, to me, is the only way to break the cycle, reformation. There's an indelible need for mandatory counseling for abusers. How do we expect to realistically break the cycle of abuse if we do not seek reformation? I was a court reporter once, and I can tell you, anything that threatens the freedom of an accused is taken seriously. I saw several persons attend court religiously with a copybook, sometimes tattered, sometimes two stuck together. Those copybooks were evidence that they had visited a police station, sometimes twice or 3 times a week, as mandated by the courts. I wish to stress that my advocacy does not think or see politics or who is in power. I see the continued need for less lip service and more legislative changes which will offer better protection for victims of abuse and GBV. I cannot understand how or why the country continues to remain reactive rather than proactive when it comes to saving lives. A second thing that I think and I believe firmly needs to be seen is the assessment of abusers at the court level. Senator Dr. Varma Diyal Singh, one of the leading psychiatrists of this country, in a newspaper article called for the assessment of persons accused of perpetrating abuse to determine if they were a danger to their victims. He recommended that the past of the accuser be looked on as an indicator. Had they been in trouble with the law before? Did they have a history of substance abuse? The senator said, and I quote, "And we can look at them and say, this person could be a potential killer." Senator Diyal Singh also called for the enforcement of the electronic bracelets then. We also need to see the establishment of a batterers intervention program. The question is always asked, why did you? Why did she stay? I can tell you, extracting oneself from an abusive relationship is more mental and psychological than it is physical. We need to understand that there are so many dynamics on both sides of the coin. Nothing can justify the abuse of anyone, nothing. But we do need to acknowledge that the people that hurt people hurt people. The first rule of thought for me, and I suspect a common thread amongst victims and survivors, is how do I stay safe? How do I transition from victim to survivor and possibly to advocate? We need a program that has at its core a multi-pronged committee to create a circle of protection around vulnerable victims that will address housing, relocation, employment. Many victims have been killed on the job, as was Nai Singh. I'd like this country to put aside party, gender, ethnicity, etc., and join hands in agitating for these legislative changes. The families of victims such as Anita Bahadur, Tahilia Sinclair, Abigail Chapman and her teenage daughter's best friend and their landlord, and countless other victims who lived in their fear and died in it, will be heartened that this country is not run on only lip service. Next week, from November 25th to December the 10th, World Human Rights Day, marks the 16 days of activism across the globe. No man or woman is an island, and sometimes I've felt like I've done this alone. I'd like to ask you on this premise to join Color Me Orange and its call of action to don your orange. Use the hashtags Color Me Orange, the ABBA movement, Orange the World, and post to your social media handles, and agitate for legislative change that will see reformation of the abusers, that will see mandatory counseling for abusers and not only the abused, that will see an active and enforceable batterers intervention program brought on stream that can provide a better sense of protection and possibly be the first line of self-defense for victims who are often sitting ducks. I'm committed to this and I'm purpose-driven because I fortunately made it out. I'm now an advocate, and I want you all to know that abuse thrives in silence. Often it thrives because it's isolation, and at the core of abuse is control and manipulation. And we all know that. I mean, I would like any victim hearing my voice to know that there is help. There are agencies that do help. I thought at one time I was alone in my fight to come out of my abusive marriage of 21 years, but I was not. Aside from divine protection, but we have to agitate for legislative change. I am tired, for one, of seeing only policy papers. I'm tired of being parts of Zooms and speaking on platforms and sometimes being recognized for working in the trenches. But what are we really offering victims and survivors? What is really happening after the policies, after the drafting of intimate partner policies and papers? What is happening? I kudos to all of the departments. I want to say a special thank you to the Ministry of National Security that saw fit to treat domestic violence and domestic disputes as a crime and no longer as a spousal incident. And on that note, I say thank you for giving me this platform, and I speak on behalf of all victims, survivors, and advocates against gender-based violence and abuse. Thank you.
Thank you, Valdine. So those were the voices of the leaders of the trade union movement and the associations that came together for this hybrid rally. At this time, I'd like to invite members of the audience. If you have a quick word, you can do so now. Those on Zoom, you can open your mics, raise your hand so we can acknowledge you. Okay, so I'd like to ask any member of the head table who may have a closing remark to make. Okay. So thank you for all our speakers here today.
Let me thank you for the opportunity to say thanks to the organizers of this forum, and to say that we are committed to working towards the ideal, to achieving a better Trinidad and Tobago, because that is what it is all about. And that I join arms with the leader of the scrap iron dealers when he says that we got to unite the ground, we got to come together. We got to not only unite the ground, but we got to ignite the ground in a fire that burns for a better Trinidad and Tobago. And have everybody understand that unless we are united, we will continue to grapple and to fight one another for the spoils. We deserve the best. We deserve not the scraps from the table. We deserve to be eating an equal share at the table of Trinidad and Tobago. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Roger, for those closing comments. As we say, all good things must come to an end. But this is not the end for the Drive for Progress movement. We will be coming to you very soon. Look out for it. I invite all to stay connected to the Drive for Progress TT, Facebook, and Instagram pages, where you'll know everything that's going on with our organization. I'm Oleta Wilson saying thank you. Have a good night.
Recording stopped.